All right, welcome um, once again, everyone, to another session. I trust you guys had a good week, eventful week, uh, and hope you guys have been practicing at least the four videos that shared with you guys. I know some of us had issues probably setting up our environments. But now I think we covered that Saturday of last week. And so there's no excuse to not having your workstation up and running for you to practice writing these commands. I see Blessing and Sylvia unmuted. Did you guys want to say something?
Hi, Moyo. So I actually practiced, like I watched the first Linux video, but so from the video, the images are a bit blurry, though I struggle to like watch it because the images on the video are
Oh,
blurry.
you know,
I'm
from
not
your
trying
YouTube
to.
setting, you can actually set it to a better quality. Maybe by default, your browser is set to use the lowest quality to save, bandwidth. But you can always increase maybe to 1040 pixel, and then the images will be clearer.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for this input. So I'm going
Mhm.
to try that. But again, the video was I watched the first video and it was a bit insightful. So
Mm,
I'll go and improve the quality.
okay.
Thank you.
All right. Cool. All right. You're welcome. It's always good to know that you guys actually during the week um, try to um, do work on these things. It's very, very important. You at least, I always advise 30 minutes a day. No matter how little you're able to cover, just try to open that terminal and type, even if it's just ls, you're able to type for that 30 minutes and understand what it does, and when you build on that day after day, it should just become second nature. Again, you will be spending the bulk of your time, in the terminal. Aside, that's for DevOps. Aside, I think most of the roles now, most of the cloud roles you have, you will be working from the a lot from the terminal. You'll be writing commands. So that's exactly these are the things we're trying to, um, you know, accomplish with this first half, before we move, to cloud computing. All right, Blessing, did you want to say something? It's like your network is off and on. All right. Again, last week we were supposed to have covered, managing users and permissions. We started out, so I think we talked about the purpose of users and groups, and then went to use root. So we would just jump on, the next part of this agenda, that is creating and removing users. I think we started out on that, but for some reason we could not complete it, but would just kick off from there, and then wherever it is that we're able to. I hope that we're able to complete all of this today. I seriously want us to complete because this is what we should have done, Sunday of last week, and we were supposed to have moved on to other things today, but that's fine. There's no time lost. We'll move on from this, and then we'll continue. So I'm just going to jump to sharing my terminal. Chibike, I've not heard your voice today. Are you with us?
Hey, how you doing? Can y'all hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Good
Yeah, I'm here.
afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Right. Were you able to practice, watch those videos over the week?
Yeah, I did watch the videos, but I'm still waiting on my projector to come in. You know how you talked about
Having a second
dual
screen, yeah.
screens
Mhm.
last Saturday?
But that does not
So
stop
I
you from
went ahead and
practicing now.
yeah, yes, I went ahead and ordered a projector so
Okay.
that way I can, learn this for real, for real.
Mm. Okay. But
Yeah,
still, it does not. It shouldn't stop you from. You could still watch your videos, pause, and then write those commands. Don't use that as an excuse. The projector,
gotcha.
the projector will come. And all right. Again, welcome.
Thank
Hope
you.
we're able to cover much ground today. Um, Fortunately, or would I say yes, I will be assuming that you guys would understand some of the things I will be talking about. hoping that you guys will still go over the videos, but feel free to call me back when you have a question for me, and I'll gladly respond to you. All right. Okay, for those that cannot talk, monitoring the chat is going to be hard for me because I don't have my second screen. I'm just using the one screen. So please maybe just unmute and then just, nudge me that you have a message in the chat if you can speak. All right. So I'm going to share my terminal. I hope you guys can see my terminal.
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. I have launched my machine already. Let me make this a bit bolder. So, oops. Okay, let's move this out of the way. All right, like we were saying last week, I think we talked about using sudo to run privilege commands. With, when I tried installing a package now, if you run it without sudo, uh, you're going to get an error because installation of packages is administrative, kind of task. So, and then for you to do that, you need to have um, administrative privilege, and you have administrative privilege on Ubuntu using the sudo command, appending the sudo command to whatever command that you want to run. And we'll be using and talking about, the advantage and the reason why you should use sudo over using this root user. So I think we started off by talking about how you can create users using two different commands, the add user command and the user add command. They kind of they do the same thing, but in different ways. And they are named kind of similarly. I think I kind of struggled with user add user, with that name at first. But we'll walk through using both commands, and then you can take a pick on which of them you prefer to use. So I want to create a user now. I'll start by using the user add command here. So adding a user is one of those administrative uh, uh, um, commands, and then you need to use the sudo command if you're going to do that. So I'm going to do sudo user add. So user add is like was the de facto standard, for creating users. In fact, there are some distributions of Linux that only has the user add command. They don't have the um, add user command. When we run the add user command, you see, I'll tell you how that's not even a command. It's more of a script, and it's peculiar to I think the Debian distribution of Linux. But we'll see all of this in a bit. So user add, talked about flags last week. For every command, there are options, there are flags that you can use to um, give that command superpower, like to use it to do other things. Say if I just run user add and then I add the name of the user, it will work, but it's just going to, take the barest minimum configuration of that command to do stuff. So and then we talked about using the man command, the man page for every command. If you want to learn and read more about that command, you can use that man page of that command, and you get synopses, the different use cases where you can use that command. So for the user add command, we have different flags now. We have the D flag. The D flag basically tells that you want to create the home directory for this user. So every user has a home directory where they store all of their different um, uh, uh, resources and directories, files, and all of those things. So I want to create a user for myself now. So The D flag just basically saying I want to create an home directory. I want to create an home directory. All right, and there's also the M flag. The M flag basically saying, okay, go ahead and create this home directory for this user. So I'm just going to create a user for my name. The name of the user is going to be Moyo, and then there's an home directory that will be created for the user. So this is the basic syntax for this user add command. Albeit, say you have to add different flags, it means you have to remember these flags. Um, but it's really, really uh, not fun. So with this, the user has been created. Give me a minute, please, guys. Oh, sorry about that, guys. So
Okay.
with just this command, I have
Hi,
created.
Moyo. Hi, Moyo. Sorry to cut you,
Yes, please.
interrupt you. Okay, so the way you're moving so fast. Like I actually understand what you're saying, but from my colleagues, because from what I watched from the first video they said, at least you let us know that everything in the mini starts with the roots, starts from the roots, and explaining to us the use of the this forward slash and all that. We are learners.
Okay.
Letting us know that for us to start anything in this thing, we need to start with using the forward slash and all that. It's just I just got this idea because of the video I watched previously. You're running too
Okay.
fast, please.
So
We are
so
learners.
I understand. That's why I keep referring to those videos. Some of these things I may omit them at times, but it's fine that you have called me back. We would actually talk about the file directory, the Linux file system, and so all of these things will still be covered. What's the forward slash means, why we start listing um, directories or whatever from the forward slash. I think tomorrow we'll cover the Linux file system and the hierarchy. There's an hierarchy where every file system actually starts from. So we'll cover all of these things, yeah. So just bear with me. It may look like I'm moving fast, but if I omit anything, trust me, I will come back to explain it. But if you do maybe are confused, you can always call me back, and I will talk about these things. So for Sylvia's what she pointed out now. So again, like you rightly said, the Linux um, operating system actually has a file system that has a tree-like, kind of structure. Yeah, it stems from the root directory, which is so we can always get to the root directory by using cd is the command to change directory. Right now, if you look at our shell here, we see that we are in a tilde. What tilde means when you see tilde, so every part of your shell, again, all of these things were clearly explained in those videos. So when you see a tilde, it basically means you are in the home directory of whatever user that you are logged in as. We're logged in as the Ubuntu user, and that's what this is. This is the user which you are logged in at. By the time we switch user to another user, whatever user we create now, and we switch user, you see that this will change to that. And then we talked about this mobile as the host name of the machine that and you can always change that depending on whatever it is that the machine is actually doing. So when you see a tilde here, it means that you're in the home directory of um, you know the user you are logged in. And then when you see a dollar sign, dollar sign means that this is not is a user that is not the root user. When this is the root user, you get a different prompt there. So let's do a CD and a backslash. So like the backslash is the home directory. And so we are in the home directory. If I do an ls hyphen L. LS is what you use in listing files. Well, Ubuntu has an alias. An alias is basically a let's say shortcut now. It's a shortcut of a command. So instead of having to type ls hyphen la, I think lah, Ubuntu has it baked in. For other distributions. You might not have this alias in there. So this, if I use ls, it lists everything I have inside of this directory. So this is the root directory, and from here, every directory, everything you see in here, directory, there are links, directories, directory. We'll talk about what all of this actually means also today. Yeah. So every directory in here is basically what makes Linux tick. So for every directory, they all have their, so bin has holds the binaries for all of these commands that we use in user add, ls, cd, bin. Again, we'll talk about each and every of these directories that is in this root directory. But what I will point out is the home directory that I used in here. So this is the root directory. From the root directory, we have a directory called home, and that's what I pointed out from this command here. There is a notion of file paths. You can explicitly use a file path, the full path to a file or a directory now, and that's why basically did in here. Say from the home directory, I want to create a directory, but I'm telling it, okay, this is where I want you to create that directory in. And then by convention, every user is by convention, it's not like a you can decide to create your user directory in any part of any part of the file system, yeah, but by default, by convention, so that you don't maybe come back after a week and then you are looking for a user's home directory, you can't find it. So user um, every user on the system's home directory is created inside of this home directory and is in the root directory. And then again, in Linux, every directory is, if you're going to point to every directory, you use the / now, and then name of that directory. So we'll talk about what each and every of this file is. Something that may look confusing at first, but with time, by the time you start using these different have reasons to go into all of this, most of the things you'll be doing would be in one of these directories for configurations. So when you install an application, for instance, now every configuration file for every application would be in the etc directory. We'll talk about all of these things. Yeah. So I just created this user now, created a user called Moyo. And with the D option, I mentioned the D option, basically clarifying where I would like the home directory to be created for this particular user. And the M flag basically tells the system I would like the home directory to be created during this process. So every flag has its use case. Like I said, gives each command superpowers. I could have created that directory myself. I could have gone to say, okay, so I want to go back to the home directory. There are different ways I could do this. I could do a CD home. This will work fine. So when in Linux, not just in Linux now, in the terminal, this is an handy shortcut.
I'm so sorry for to cut.
Yes.
I just want to know. I know we're on Ubuntu, but you keep saying Linux. So are the commands in Ubuntu and Linux the same?
So Linux, Ubuntu is um, a distribution of, so the Linux kernel is what different distributions of Linux are actually built on. So Ubuntu is from the Debian family. We have the Red Hat family also, where you have Amazon Linux. Amazon Linux called as Amazon Linux. You have CentOS, you have Red Hat also, and different distributions. We have tons of distribution, but most of them are actually, you can categorize them into two different families. That's the Red Hat family and then the Debian family. Ubuntu is from the Debian family. And again, they share the same Linux kernel. That's why I keep saying Linux now. So I'm not basing this on just one distribution. So the commands that you run in Ubuntu is going to run in, say you're using one from the RHEL family, the Red Hat Enterprise Linux family. It will run fine because they all emanate from that same kernel. Even your Mac OS, most of the commands here, if you run it on your Mac, they will run fine because Mac was also built, the Linux kernel is an open source kernel, so anybody can, if you have access to that kernel and then you know what you're doing, you can then tweak it, add a few things. These all the files you have in here are the things that you would maybe, if you understand some programming languages. I think Perl is one of the language that was heavily used in building, writing some of these scripts, and then the commands that you have in here in Linux. So if you know how to do this, you can pick up, a Linux kernel and tweak it, add things to it, and then customize it to suit your own, use case. So if I use Linux, that's because I don't want to make it look like it's just Ubuntu we are learning here. It's, cuts across all of the distributions. I hope that's fine.
Thank you. I understand better now.
All right. Okay, so I could do this. I think I was trying to show you guys that. So if you are in a particular directory, so I'm in this directory, this root directory now, and I'm trying to go to the home directory, I could do a CD because I am in this directory and the home directory is here. If I type H is like the only, home is like the only directory that has H. So if I hit on my escape key on my keyboard, it will auto-complete this for you. So as you are using the terminal, you want to also be efficient. And so this little handy trick now to auto help you auto-complete whatever it is that you're trying to do would come in really handy, especially when you have to go inside of a directory, and then you want to quickly get there. Just use the tab key to auto-complete it for you, and this will fine. So I can do this. I can do CD home, and this will bring me to the home directory. It's using the home/home directory, and that's because I, came directly from the root directory. So it's just using /home. If I do an ls, we should see all of the files that we have here. We have Moyo and Ubuntu. These are the two users that we have currently. Ubuntu is like the default user that's this particular, that our cloud provider, AWS now, actually made available for this Ubuntu machine that we spinned up. If you're using some other cloud provider, it might be different. For Digital Studio, I think by default, they unlock the root user so you can sign in, you create, that's their droplet. They call their machines droplets in AWS. We call them AC2 instances. And then with that, you create droplets, and then you it's just the root user that you have. But AWS, they are, I want to say they are smart enough to know that with the root user, even if you're installing, Ubuntu or any Linux, let's stick to Ubuntu now on an hardware. You create an administrative user, during that installation because of the power of that root user. With the root user, you can actually do and undo, to the machine. So Ubuntu by default actually locks the root user, locks it in sense that you can't sign in to it directly, just like we did from our SSH client now, where you put in your username, and then if it's password or it's a key that you want to use, Ubuntu by default locks the root user so that you don't use it, but then it creates, you have to, upon installation, create an administrative user, which AWS actually has abstracted away for us. That's that Ubuntu user, and it makes it a sudo. Can administrative means it can use elevated privilege, but this user now that we created, is just an ordinary user. It still has very limited power. So every user that you create, if by convention, should have a directory in here. That's where all of the files and resources, anything packages that that user actually works with, is inside of that this directory. As another user, can I go into another person's home directory? Maybe, should we try this as an Ubuntu? Can I go into your directory? Permission denied. And this is one of the security features of Linux, or user management. Basically, you can have multiple people use the same machine, but they are kind of independent of themselves. I can have my own files, directories, and everything, on the same machine, and then Chibi can also have his own, files and everything, and then we don't have access to it. Yeah, so Ubuntu cannot go into Moyo's home directory. All right, so but we have created this user. Fine. I hope so far we are on track. I think I will be pausing regularly to ask so that I don't just keep running. Okay, I'll
Yeah,
take the
we're good.
silence as okay. Thank you
We're
very much.
good. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so one of the next things that you want to do when you create a user using the user add command is to create a user password. So this is one of the disadvantages of the user add command. It will only create the user. It does not create a password for the user. So you have to now create a password for the user yourself. And there's a command that we use in creating password. And most of this, you'll see most of the commands that you'll be using intuitively, you'll see that it's not something that you cram. Um, uh, when you use it once or twice, it will just become second nature. Like I want to create a password. The command is password also, just to create, to create a password. The password command, by default, if I just type password now, so I'm in the home directory. So if I type password, even though I'm still logged in as user, if I type password, it will allow me to change the password for this current user, the user that I'm logged in, which is, Ubuntu. And we also use it to set password for other users. If I type it just password now, this would work for this user because the user can change his own password. But if I want to change the password or I want to add a password to the new user that I just created, I need to run it as as root, or with using the sudo command. So if I try it like this, okay, I think I'll leave some mystery in some of these things so you guys can actually experience it yourself. If try to run this password now with your Ubuntu user, and whatever it is you experience, it's fine. I know what will happen, but I'm going to leave that mystery. These are some of the challenges you guys would have. I won't. I'll give you everything you need, but I'll still leave room for you to try to explore. Yeah. All right. So I want to change the password for this user. Is sudo, again, is an administrative command, so I'm going to add sudo to it. Password moyo. Yeah. If I run this, it's going to ask for new password. So I'm going to add a new password. Again, it's not going to show maybe star. Some of us are used to using star for using passwords and what have you, but for Linux doesn't show anything, doesn't show star, but it records the input from your keyboard. So it's going to ask you to type the password. I'm just going to go and type that, and then password updated successfully. Right. So now we have a user and we have been able to set the password for that user. Um, this user Muyo now will be able to access the system with the password we've chosen. But with this user that was just created, I'm going to clear this screen so that you guys can see everything that is being typed from the top and not from the bottom. Yeah. So if I switch to this user now, by default, this user now would not have access to using that Elevate, cannot use sudo by default. And we'll talk about how to make a user an administrator, yeah, in a bit. So with the add user command, things where is a bit manual, if you put it. But we have another command now, the add user command, which is, would I say, a more convenient way of creating a user. So I'm just going to jump to using it, and you see the difference between this. So I want to go to the home directory of Ubuntu, just because I don't like saying /home here. I could do a cd Ubuntu. This is fine. And we see immediately that, it didn't say /home/Ubuntu. It just changed to the tilde sign. That's how you know that you're in the home directory of the current user that you are logged in. Yeah, and there's the same way, instead of having to type just cd home from anywhere you are. Say, let me go back to my root directory now. So if I'm going to go to the home directory of this, I could do /home/Ubuntu. It's fine, but for lazy people like myself, Linux has we have this you can just use the cd command will take you directly to the home directory of the current user that you're logged in. So however deep you are in the file system, and you want to go back to the home directory, just use the cd command and it take you back to the home directory. All right, moving on. We'll create a user using the add user command, and you see the difference between that. So let me create a user for Sylvia. So sudo add user Sylvia. All right, that's all I need. With this, I don't have to remember any flags to use. I don't have to add any flags. I don't have to specify the home directory to create and all of those things. This is just all I need to use, just the sudo add user and Silva, and you'll see immediately, and it actually kinds of tells you everything that it's doing. It's creating, is adding user Sylvia, is selecting the UID, that's the user ID, the group ID from the range, blah, blah, blah. Then adding the new group, adding the new user to the group, is creating the home directory, is copying files from, we'll talk about, all of these things, what the UID is, what the GUID is, and then, what's this curl, file is in a bit. Yeah. So I'm going to choose a new user for Silver.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
What's the difference between the user add command and add user?
Oh, okay. So you'd have to answer this question yourself. With the user add command, we had to add flags to it. You have to specifically tell the kernel, okay, yes, I want to create the home directory for this user that I'm about to create, and go ahead and create it. And then after it created that user, it's not as explicit as this. um, that's the long response to all of this. The short response is that the user add command um, is a binary command. Is a binary command that is yes, it's a binary command. While this add user is more of a program, is more of a script now. And I mentioned earlier that it's not available to all of the Linux distribution. It's available to, I think, the Debian family. Um, um, I'm not sure it's available to Amazon Linux. Uh, yeah, so is a script that was kind of added to the Debian um, distribution of Linux, and we'll see. Okay, I'll show you the script that actually runs, and then you see that inside of it, you'd this add user program. I usually call it program now. It calls the user add command, and then does all of these extra things, just gives superpower to the user add command. Yeah, basically. So if you are maybe find yourself, somebody asks you the difference, just basically tell them the user add command is a binary command, while the add user command is more of a program, it's a script. It was written in, I think, Perl or so. So with that, they know that you know what you're talking about. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
I was typing command and I don't remember what I typed though. But let's see if okay, so this would ask for a full name. Sylvia. I'm just going to use Sylvia. It's not necessary that you put all of this. All of these are kind of optional. Could just have added Sylvia, what's your number? I'm just going to give you a generic number. Your home number is 412. I hope this is nobody's number though. Others, trust 01. Right, so adding user to and all of those things. So this is more of is convenient, I would say. It asks you a series of questions. Um, you know, password twice, the user full name, room number, all of those things. These things are kind of again for management purpose. It's not every time. Like I said, they are optional things that you could have just pressed enter to skip those prompts if you wanted to. The only things that are really required are the username and the password. That's all that is actually required.
Okay, hi Moyo. Sorry. So I'm trying to I've been exploring around, so I'm trying to do what you're doing. So
Okay.
I actually made a mistake and I want to go back to the points where I want to go back to the points before I enter as in before entering the password. I think I had an error, like I made a mistake in the password. So I want to go back to the points where I want to set the new password. So how do
Okay.
I
So if
get to that
if
place?
you put in two incorrect password, it will tell you they do not match and then request that you do it again. Again, it's a program, so there's a loop in there until you put the right password. Did you try that?
So I just want to get right now already. I was trying to see maybe go back to the points where I for me to enter to enter a fresh password. I'm trying to get to that point. How do I go
So
back
you've
on
initiated
the
a program, the add
okay?
user program, yeah?
Yes, I already
Mm,
did that.
mm. And so it has told you, it has verbosed all the things that information is trying
Yeah,
to
I've
do
gotten
and
to
all
the
of
point. Yeah, I've gotten to the point where you say copying files and enter password. So the
enter
new
password.
password, I think I entered the
And
wrong
because you can't
password
see
and
it,
I can
yeah. So if you enter the wrong
yes.
password, just click on enter. It will ask you for you to retype the new password. Yes.
So try again. So you're saying Y and like yes or no. So what to I click?
Try again.
Yeah,
That means the passwords
try
what
again.
they don't match. So yes, you want to re-enter the password.
But I can't
Because
remember the things that because I couldn't like I was typing. I can't remember what I typed. So I want to do it afresh. Like I want to start afresh
oh, so it's the
because I
retype
can't
new
remember.
password that is telling you to try again.
Yes. So I want
Uh,
to like I want
okay.
to
You
create
can
a new password because I can't remember the password I set. So I just want to
for
create a new
for
one.
the new password. So you can exit that program by using, I think, Control C or so to trigger um, a run
So
level command. So you have to restart that. So if it does not complete all of this series, where it adds the new user to extra groups and all of those things, you can always, it does not complete. It is like when you try to take money out of your ATM and then you put the wrong password, if you don't complete that flow of putting in the amount you want to collect and whether it's a savings or current account, if you cancel it midway, you can reinitiate that process. It won't take out the money from your account. So it won't add that user until you complete all of this step. I don't know if that makes
I
sense.
get what it makes sense, but I get what you're saying. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to start the process all
Just
over again. I just
cancel,
cleared.
yes, if
I
you
just
want it
cleared.
to start over and then just rerun that same command and then it would recreate and then put in a new password and retype it.
All right, thank you.
All right. So this is when you guys can actually, break and do anything that you want to break now. Try everything out. Anything that doesn't work, do it over and over again. Because when you get on the roll, you don't want to do this, on an organization's machine. And they expect that you actually know what you're doing before they give you access to your machine, anyways. Um, okay, yeah, I was saying the add command actually performed quite a bit of work for us. Defaulted to using the home directory of the user now. So whatever name you give the user is going to default in creating that home directory of that for that particular user. Then again, we'll talk about what the UID and the group ID is. Also 101, blah blah blah, and all like that. Again, we'll cover all of these things in a bit. In a nutshell, the add user command I think, is a much more convenient. It's much more convenient in the sense that it only prompts you for various options, which it creates. While it creates the user without requiring that you memorize any command line option. Flag M, flag D, and all of those things. It also gives you detailed information about what is being done, unlike the user add command that was so, again, we talked about this. When you run a command and you don't get any error, it means it was successful, but it's not really appealing. The moment I ran this and then it started, displaying all of this information, it kind of gives, well, to humans, you kind of have a sense of, yes, I'm doing something. Not that even see the password now. Sylvia, she forgot the password that she typed. That's because she did not see. And this is all because if you were seeing the asterisks now, maybe you would have remembered what you were typing, but because it was just blank like that, you won't even know, the exact key that you actually hit. Yeah. So again, the add user command in my books is a much, much better way, of creating users. And unfortunately, is not available on all distributions of Linux. So it's still good to familiarize yourself using the user add command in case, you find yourself in an environment or you're using a Linux system that is not, of the Debian family, that is not Ubuntu. I think some Debian distributions do not even have this add user, but Ubuntu again is one of the most popular distributions. That's what you probably be using, from time to time. So we are safe in that regard. Um, like I said, the add user command is actually is a shell script. We'll talk about shell scripts. Is a text file that can be executed like a program. We'll talk about this. We'll even write our own shell scripts. When we think during the last week. That's next week actually. Um, like I said, it's written in Perl. Programming Perl is a programming language that is used sometimes for administrative automating things, but the world is actually moving away from using Perl now. Python is the program that is being the language that is being used for most administrative tasks now. So we can even open the text editor. So we'll use the text editor to open up that file. I think is actually in, let me see, Nano. Let me use Nano to do this. Nano is in the sbin directory, if I'm correct. USR sbin, yeah, that's where it is. And then add user. So see that I did not open this file using sudo, and that's because I do not want to. This one. I do not want to edit or is unwritable, yeah, because if you tamper with it, you've broken plenty of things. Yeah, these are the contributors to this. It's quite okay. So you see that is a Debian add user program by blah 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 from MIT. If you go through all of this again, can be confusing if again you're not code. I know most of us are from non-IT background, but if you go through, just inquisitive enough, you go through all of this, you would see at one point there it's actually calling the user add command, and then they're adding quite a lot of things to it. Very, very interesting. I think I went through this one time and I was like, wow. If you're not used to programming, all of these things will just look like gibberish to you. But we'll talk about we'll write our own script. We'll write something similar to this. Maybe you take it very, very slow. We'll not write something as elaborate as this, but we just play around, to what's the power of using scripts in your for day-to-day activities. Yeah. Um, okay, so I won't want us to dwell too much on this. Let me exit this Control X. All right. Um, so now we've seen how to create users. Obviously, creating if you can create, you can also remove users. Removing or disabling an account is an important is equally as important. Creating, removing is equally important as creating. I think it was yesterday on Thursday, a developer had left my organization since the beginning of the month, and he had access to our GitHub repository. It was actually an oversight from my end, though usually the moments developer leaves, first thing you want to do, as a DevOps engineer, you will be managing the remote repository of your organization. You will be granting access to users, developers, to different repositories who should have access to what they should be able to do. The engineering lead just told me that he still noticed that because he was trying to create a pull request. So all of these things, you guys would in due time you will understand all these jargons that I'm talking about. I was going to create a pull request and I noticed that this person was still part of those that could review the pull request. Immediately I remember that, oh, I did not remove this user. And, seeing that he had left, it means he still had access to all of the different code-based repositories, and he could have, cloned them to his own local machine, and then who knows, what could have been done with it. So removing users is as important that when a user no longer needs access to a system. This even goes beyond just user management in Linux now. You see, even in your cloud computing environment, you will be creating and then removing users, adding permissions to users on a regular. So it looks very, very basic, but these are things that you'll be doing from time to time. All right, so and unmanaged accounts often, again, like I said, becomes a security risk. So when you remove user in Linux using the user del command, and it's what to know that before removing an account, though, there are questions that you want to ask yourself. Are there files, resources that this user has that is still kind of beneficial to the organization? Most organizations, most companies have retention policies in place that detail what should happen to a user's data, when they are leaving an organization. If you find yourself as an administrator, these are the things that you would even have to, formulate yourself. You have to make sure that you provide policies for user creation, user, termination, removal of users, and all of those things. Most times, the files will be copied into an archive for um, um, long-term storage. At times, a manager would just assign a co-worker or maybe a new hire now, and then give him all of the former users file to continue the work that he started, whatever project he was working on. So it's actually important to understand this policy ahead of managing users. As an administrator, these are one of the things that you always want to put in mind. So might even have to, again, like I said, you might even have to be the one to outline requirements for user resignation. Yeah, if you work as part of the management team, you have to be the one to create one. All right. So by default, using the user del command, again, most of these commands that will, when it comes to creating, removing, they are administrative commands. So you need to always use the sudo command with it. There are some users that would probably just switch to the root user so that they don't have to type sudo at all times. Well, yeah, different people with how they like to do things. But if you are just learning out, I'll just advise, I'll counsel you learn to use sudo as much as possible. Using the root user is it means you know what you're doing basically, and then because you can actually, if you have a typo in your command, you can actually destroy. Oh crap! I need to plug my laptop. Okay, so user del and which user do I have here? Let me remove the Moyo user. With this, it would only remove the user. I remember that we have, let's go to our home directory now. Where I could have just do an ls and then we have Moyo Silver. So if I do a sudo user del Moyo, so this has deleted that user. But if we still list, we still have that's Moyo directory. But I don't know. Did you guys notice, or can you notice anything from when we ran the original command to list and when we run it again after we have deleted the user. You guys notice what is there, yes? Do you notice any difference?
Sorry, Muyo, I just tried, because I had to attend to my client. I just tried, when you did, and it's showing me something else. I'm no more on this page. How do I go back?
Abnormal, huh?
I typed in the nano command, the nano user
Oh,
slash
okay. You
sh
went
slash
into to check the add user command.
yes,
Oh, okay.
I was
So
doing
for you to exit the nano editor, you use, I think, command and X to exit it. If you did not, hope you did not edit anything there.
no,
Okay,
no, I
so
didn't.
use Control X on P on Windows. I think Command X on the Mac. We will talk about
Thank you.
text editors and the likes. So how to use choosing which text editor is good for you and all. You guys did not notice anything. We had Moyo when we ran it when the user still existed, but after we deleted the user, we see here now that it's just the excuse me, a user ID that we don't know which user it belongs to, and then a group ID that we don't know, or what it belongs to. So the user del just deletes the user, but all of the user files actually exist. So if there's a policy, you can decide now, okay, yes, I can move this or your user's file now to an archive directory, and the command we use in moving um, can move files, directories, or what have you. We use the mv command. Again, I expect that you guys know all of this basic navigation command. So I can do a sudo move. Since I'm in the home directory already, so I can just say moyo to say I have a directory called in home directory called store, and then file underscore archive. I know this does not exist as a store. So there's a directory called store, and then there's another directory called store archive. If I run this, I know this will fail because no such file exists. Can go ahead and create that file, that's directory, and then we run that and see that would actually work. So okay, let's go ahead and just create this directory so we can actually move this. So we the command to create new directory is mkdir. So I want to create this directory in my root directory. So and most of the files in there are owned by root, so I need to use sudo. You can actually create the mkdir is not an administrative command. So, but because I want to create this particular directory, this file directory in the home, the root directory, I'm using the sudo to do that, and I'm going to use the flag p. I'm going to create the store in the home directory, store, and call this file archive. So I'm using this p flag. I'm going to It's basically creates the parent directory if it does not exist. You guys can go ahead and try creating, running this without the P flag and see what error you're going to get. So with this, if I go to my CD, I should have, my directory called store, and then inside store, I should have another directory called file archive. And if I want to, I could actually, so there is a flag, an option you can add to the user del directory that would delete all of the home directory for that user, even after the account has been removed. So I could run this again, say I could do sudo user del, and then there's a flag R, this, and then the name of the user. This would remove the user account and said the user does not exist. But if I go back to my home now, oh, sorry, let's go back to home. Oh, okay. Okay. So because the user has been removed, that's first command it did not run. So, but I could go ahead and just use a sudo remove recursively. So this command would actually work for a user that has not been deleted, and then you want to delete that user and then delete the home directory as well. So you can use sudo user del flag R and then the user. But if you want to delete all of this user directory, the rm command is actually the command to use. This flag R is the command to use, and going to delete this moyo recursively because I'm here. Else I would have had to use the. So if I come back here, I see here that all of this has been deleted. I hope we are still on the same page.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So I would sound a note of warning using the remove command. You should be extremely careful when you're using that remove command, especially if you're logged in as the root user or you're using sudo while using the remove command. You can easily destroy your entire, file system, your installed system if you're not careful. So I'm going to type a command now. Please do not run this command. Or please, you can go ahead and run it. You're using a cloud machine, so you can always terminate that machine and then recreate another one. So this command now is, at first glance, it looks innocent, but this will likely completely destroy your entire file system. So again, I sounded this note of warning before I ran this command. So don't come back to me and say I was the one that ran it. And I don't know if you guys can tell me what is damaging in this command. So say I wanted to delete the Sylvia user or the home page or the home directory. Can anybody, do you notice anything in this command? And if you notice, can you explain what is wrong in it or how dangerous it is to run this command? There's a typo in there.
I think you're saying you want to do like a recursive delete.
Yes, that's what it does, a recursive delete. But there's a typographical error in the command. I accidentally, or would I say, okay, let's say I accidentally typed a space after the first forward slash, which literally means it's telling the system to remove the content of the entire file system. Remember, earlier I mentioned that the root that forward slash is, that's the root of, your file system. That's basically where all of your kernel sits in, everything that makes Linux tick. So it's saying remove everything in here, and then the rest of this command. Also, I want you guys to have it at the back. Linux is case sensitive. So when you are creating directories, creating users, you want to, be very cognizant of the case you're using in creating these users and all. So this command, as simple as it is, it would remove all of the content of your file system or everything in it. And then that's if you execute this, the server would not even boot because there's nothing to actually boot. The next time, if it will just terminate. You can go ahead and try it out and see what will happen. But it means you have to terminate that machine and then we create another one. Yeah. So because all of the user and the program, everything has been wiped out, and so there's, uh, so whether you are using root or you're using elevated privilege, you want to be very, very careful when you use the remove command. All right, moving on. I'm not going to, let's just, okay, so we'll understand how to add and remove users. And again, let's look deeper into passwords. We created passwords for the two users that we created. Okay, now I think we only have one user left. Can I just go ahead and add another user? Let's just go. So you can use the up arrow key to see past commands that you have typed in the past, or if you want to see everything, you can use, there's an history command that would list all of the commands that you have typed. And if you want to say, okay, rerun a particular command that you had run, just look at the line number of that command, use the exclamation mark and type in that, line number, and it will rerun that command for you. Very, very handy. But I just want to use the add user command because it's much, much easier. I'm just going to add Moyo back because we deleted him earlier. And then I'm going to give a password to him. And I do not remember my password that I typed. All right. Just going to, again, these are not actually necessary. All right, so we have two users back now. All right, so again, we have created deleted user accounts on our machine. How do we start managing these users? Creating users is just one thing, but now we should be able to manage our users. But where exactly, where is all the information of the users that have been created? Where are they stored? So we know that the users store their personal files and directories, everything in the home / home file. Yeah, but is there some form of database that somewhat keeps track of which user accounts are on the system? Like I said, the home directory of users can actually be placed somewhere else. So you cannot determine the number of users that you have by just looking at the home directory. It's not a yardstick to, you can't say that's how you know that these are all the users that you have by looking at the home directory. No, I could decide, okay, yes, for a certain user, I want the home directory to be, say in the /sbin directory in the root directory. So, but there's a database. No, I don't want to say it's a form of database because everything in Linux is, like I said, is seen as either a file or a directory. Yeah, so there is a special file now, a text file, where there are two files actually where user account informations are stored. One is the password file. We use the cat command, cat no, sorry, cards to display content of a text file. So we'll start with the first file, that's the password file. This is in the etc directory of the root user, and then in the password file. Password is pass wd, just like the command you use in creating password. So again, you see that Linux is actually not, these commands are not something that you have to cram by. When you use it regularly, you see that is kind of intuitive. You use password to change users, and then the file that holds all of the users on the system is stored in um, you know, the password file, we see that we have quite a number of users already, and not all of these have home directories, in the home directory. Oh, okay, like that. But the last three, Ubuntu, Sylvia, and Muyo. These are the three users that we can say yes. We have used and we talked about. We'll talk about the remaining users that came from only God knows where. But this is where, if you want to know all of the users that exist on your machine, this is the first the file that you have to look at. With this, you guys notice that I ran this even without using the sudo command. I just cut to display all of the content. But for the other file, that's the shadow file, if I try to do cat slash, let's see, so slash shadow, okay, this would probably tell me permission denied. So this is because the shadow file requires elevated. You need to be an administrator, to be able to view the content of the file. We'll talk about why this is a bit. But first, let's talk about the etc file, the password file rather. So each line within this again contains all of the users in here on the machine. But again, the last three these are the ones that we want to focus on for now. We'll talk about these are system generated users that again are used by the kernel to run the things that make the operating system tick, or some programs that run in the background and whatever have you. But the last three is what we'll focus on, and when we understand these three, the rest of them, if is necessary, we can actually create our own system users that we won't have to log into. They just run some background task on our behalf. Okay, when we talk about cron jobs and all of those things. Again, each line within this file corresponds to a user account on the system. They are split into columns. Yeah. So we see, let's take the Sylvia and the Moyo user, as a use case. So this is the username of that user, and then each of these columns are separated using by a colon. The first column is username. The next column is simply an X. This again, is basically pointing to the fact that it's supposed to be, I think there was back in the day, the password for each user is actually stored in here. But now for security reason, the password has been moved to the shadow file. The password file and the shadow file they work hand in hand. So this X is saying the password for this user has been encrypted, and then is residing in the shadow file. And that's the reason why an ordinary user cannot just view this shadow file. You need to have administrative, because it contains the password for the users that you have in here, albeit it has been encrypted, but still, you need to have administrative permission to be able to view that. And then the third column is basically the user ID, and then fourth one, the group ID. Maybe I should explain that. User ID and user accounts and groups are actually referenced by their IDs. The kernel actually references users and groups. I know we've not talked about groups, but we'll get there in a bit. By their IDs. So it's easier for you and I to manage users by their names. That's why the usernames, are still there. But their usernames, group names, they are basically labels, placed on the user ID, in order for us to help us, as humans, to identify them more easily. Because imagine having to remember the user ID of, say, Moyo now 1001. Yeah, even though it looks very basic, like, okay, I should be able to remember 101, but if you have quite a number of users and you have to remember all of those user ID, it becomes um, doesn't become easy. It becomes harder, kind of, because we don't remember numbers very well as we do names as humans. But to Linux, to the kernel itself, each time it wants to reference a user, it references users using the user ID. And if it wants to reference groups, it actually uses the group ID. By default, is these two IDs are automatically assigned, using the next available uh, um, uh, uh, the next available UID that's in the account. Um, okay. The next one, next column is basically the name that we assigned when we creating the user, and all of these other options here is the name, the numbers, that's the room number, just basically information about that user. And like I said, they're optional. If we see for the Ubuntu user, we don't have all of those things. It's just the username we have. We don't have the number, the name, and all of those things. And then next is this is the home directory. Yes, the next is the home directory, and then finally we have the scripts, the shell scripts that the default shell script that the user actually uses. If you use user add to create the user, by default, I think user add uses sh as its default script, and not bash. That is something for you guys to try out and see. Use Leave the user that was created using that and check, and you see that the bash, the script in the terminal, the default terminal is not bash. All right, so let's quickly talk about the other entries, the many users that we have here, the ones that we didn't create ourselves. This is very, very normal. Like I said, Linux uses account for different user accounts for various processes and services that run in the background. You probably never have to interact with this default account, except maybe you create your own system user for a purpose to run as maybe you can create a data processor account now that you use to automate some data processing scripts that would run as a cron. Cron is basically um, like a repetition, something that runs you know, over and over again. Anyways, back to our password file. Okay, I think I already talked about. Do you guys have any question regarding these other users? Again, this is their system generated users. Just know that they are there. They are basically um, running some background processes that, again, you don't need to worry yourself about the network, the system time, all of these things that has been abstracted. If we were managing, maybe you work in a data center now, you probably would want to focus on this, but not necessary. My opinion. All right. Like I said, the default shell scripts. This is also important. So what's um, uh, the default shell that each user would use? Again, using the add user, which defaults to bash, and then when user add command uses the sh. Um, um, and there are differences in the different shells, though. Uh, the sh is not very user friendly. It does not give you these prompts like bash actually gives you. And the use of shell is basically totally dependent on the user. Same commands that you run would run whether you're using bash or um, sh. And then if you notice all of these system generated users, they have a no login default shell. Basically, that's because you can't log in with them. You can't take a nobody user now or a www data and say you want to switch to that user, try to log into that user. It won't work. For security reasons, you are unable to. It can only run background uh, processes. All right. So moving on to the shadow file. Uh, oh wow. All right. The shadow file, like I said, basically contains password. Let's run this. Sudo c shadow shadow. Oh, so I've eaten my tab, but it's not bringing out, and that's because sudo does not is not a command that would. So because I did add the shadow. All right. So again, we are just focused on the last three users that we have in here. For the Ubuntu user, we don't have a password. So that's why the second part of this. So the first part, again, this is divided into um, four columns. The only thing that we should actually worry ourselves with here is, or that we need to just take away from this is that the password now has been hashed. Hashed, it has been I say gobbled up, has been encrypted if you have it. This was not why I actually did not type all of this here, but what I typed as was encrypted and then put in here. Yeah, so that's what this does. And then the other things here, again, this is for core um, uh, uh, um, managers. You want to be a Linux administrator. Yeah, you can worry yourself with this. Just know that the shadow file contains the password for every user on the system. For our Ubuntu user that doesn't have a password, we see that there's an um, exclamation mark in there. I think this exclamation mark actually, and if we go to okay, our root user for those with the asterisks in front, it means that user has been disabled, I think. Yes, it means the user has been disabled and then you can't log in with that user. There's no password associated with that user. Sorry, excuse me. Um, mm, okay. All right. Uh, so when we create uh, in a typical organization, you see there are usually some defaults that are recommended for users in terms of files and configuration. Yeah, so for example, in a company that performs software development, a tech organization, there are likely recommended settings for, say, text editors that they use, or even version control systems. Files that are yes, so they have different configuration for different um, task or use cases that each user actually performs. So um, that's basically what this next file um, that we want to look at, this scale file. So this, I'm just going to, let me just ls or ll the content of this. Um, scale, scale. All right. Um, so files that are contained within this particular um, directory now, or yes, um, they they are copied into the home directory for all new users when you create them. I don't know if you guys remember when we used the um, add user command I think at the very last bit of all of those verbals that was sent to us, we saw copying from etc scale into home directory of that user. So everything that we have in here is basically copied into the home directory for all new users. So assuming you've chosen to create a home directory while setting up the user using the add user command here. In fact, if we okay, so each time we create a new user and request a home directory to be created, these three files, bash, rc profile, and bash logouts, they are copied into the home directory alongside so with any file that you create in here. So if again this is something you guys would want to go and try out yourself, you can create a file inside of this directory and then create a new user. Compare with the user that you created before you added that file. You see that's what you have would be quite different. Again, this is basically is a an administrative kind of tax. So again, go ahead, give it a try. Feel free to create some random text file and then create a new user afterward, and then you see that these files would be propagated into the home directory of that new user account that you just added to your system. Okay, we have quite a lot that we still want to cover, and so I don't want us to dwell too much on things that I would not be using from day to day. Most of this, they are there. I know that. That's why I talk about them, just to let you know that they exist. And then if you decide, okay, yes, I want to know more about this, you can explore it further. So again, every command, every file that exists, you can always use the man page that is available to you. Say, I want to learn about this particular scale file that exists, so I can use the man page to, uh, you know, oh, sorry, can't use the directory. Mm, mm, should not. Okay, use it for files. What's going on? Hi guys, can you still hear me? It looks like my network is really
Yes,
uh,
We can hear you.
okay. You have the man command. My screen seems to be lagging. Uh, okay, so let's move on to switching users. Now we have several users on our machine. We need to know how to switch between them because we have created. You've been talking about creating users and all of those things. Of course, we can always just log into the server as one of these users, but we can actually switch to any user account at any time, provided you either know the user's password or you have sudo access. The command you use to switch from one user to the other is su. Su. Oops, sorry, I can't see my Zoom. So su is the command, is switch user. Su is just a mnemonics to switch user. So if you enter su with no option, it will assume that you want to switch to root and we ask for the root password. So if I try this, it will ask for password for root. And we know that mentioned earlier that our Ubuntu by default locks the root account by default. And so the root has no password, just like we saw in the scale file that we looked at. Uh, you know, again, and I mentioned that some cloud providers actually allow you um, access to use roots. Unfortunately, we don't. And I think it's safer that way. So I can go ahead and cancel out of this because I do not have the password for root. Unlocking the root account is actually really simple. All you have to do is create a root password. Uh, and for you to do that, you can execute um, sudo password. This would create a root user, but I do not want to unlock the root user of this machine. Again, these things are readily available for you, so you can go ahead. This all of this is available. However, really do not have to unlock the root account in order to use it. You can actually still switch to the root user without unlocking it. And it's typically better to leave the root account locked unless you have a very specific, let me use very specific reason to unlock it. Yeah, so but we can actually still switch, to the root account using sudo su and the hyphen. The day I discovered this, I was it was interesting. So right now we see I have switched to the root account, and I told us that when we switch to the root account, you know, prompt here actually changes the name of the user's change to root, and then we see that we have a pound sign instead of the dollar sign. So with a pound sign, it tells you that this is, um, a super user, and you can do whatever it is that you want to do. Um, and if you want to exit to return to your previously logged in user, you simply use the exit command, and then you switch back to. Um, all right. And also, if you want to switch to another account other than the root, you can simply log out and log in as that user. But again, we don't really want to do that. So we can just use a su uh, su and then the username. Say I want to log into the Moyo user. It's going to ask obviously for um, the password. Hopefully, I can remember the password that I used. And now I am logged in um, to the Moyo user. So any user, as long as you have the password for that user, you can log into that user. And this is all well and good if you know the user's password, but you often won't know, user's password that you create. So as an administrator, how do you log into uh, uh, a user's account that you did not create? Because most times, in organization, in an enterprise, once you create an account, you force the user to change their password at first login, and then you no longer know, that user's password. So, but since you have, that elevated privilege, that's pseudo right. You could always change your password and then log in, as that user. That's just one way. But it means they'll know that something is amiss. If they try their password and then suddenly something stops working, it means you have somebody is dropping, or well, except you want to make it known that yeah, it's dropping on the account, but armed with um, the sudo elevated privilege, you can use your sudo to change any user you want to, even if you don't know their password. Then we just prefix this now with sudo. Earlier we ran this um, when we wanted to switch to Moyo, we just ran su Moyo. But as a sudoer, I could, and that's because the Ubuntu is an administrator on this particular machine. If I just do a sudo su Moyo, it will not request for a password. I could automatically, um, you know, move into that user. At times, this works because Ubuntu was not created with a password. If say I had a user that was has a password and was a sudo, it will probably require that user's password. So if with this one, I would add one of these user as a sudo and then try to run this command. It will request for the password of that particular user. You know, again, switching to other user accounts is often very helpful, mostly for support, especially while you want to troubleshoot issues on a particular user's, account. Mm, yeah, especially. mm, okay. Mm, All right. Is there any question around all of this that we've been talking about so far? I hope I'm not doing abracadabra, and you guys are, understanding all of this.
Like definitely little by little, at least I'm following along with the hands-on.
Could you repeat that, please? Okay.
Sorry, I have my mask on. But definitely little by little, I'm also following with the hands-on. I think what I need to do is just watch more videos and I would understand. I'm
Yes,
not
I
using
know there's
commands
so
that have.
much information, in all of this. But when you actually, for Sylvia now that is following along, I want to believe she's going to um, grasp all of these things because she's trying it, almost immediately. But if you watch the video and then not just rewatch it, try to do these things and even go beyond now,